guys. Every year or so, I think it might be biannual or something, the Library of Congress holds a National Book Festival in DC. They have authors come out here and do signings. They have a place where they sell books. The only people I'm really familiar with, authors that they have, are Margaret Atwood, who wrote this trilogy of dystopian fiction. One of them is called Oryx and Crake, and another one recently came out and it finished the series. She's really popular. There's another guy, Brad Meltzer, who writes a lot of mystery books. And he also wrote Identity Crisis, which some of you guys might be familiar with. Identity Crisis is a book from DC Comics where a bunch of superheroes were beating up on this rapist guy called Dr. Light. You should read that, it's a really good book. So we're gonna walk around, maybe get a shot of a few authors, talk to people, and see what we can get into.
We wandered around the festival grounds for a bit and listened to a few authors and poets talk about their work. I saw a staff member taking a smoke break, and I asked him what his favorite novel is.
Wow, I have so many.
Choose one out of the puddle.
Anne Rice is The Witching Hour.
Sorry, say that again?
Anne Rice is The Witching Hour.
Okay, she's a vampire lady?
Yeah, I love Anne Rice.
Okay, is The Witching Hour a vampire book?
It's about witches. Yeah, it takes place in New Orleans. It's amazing.
When was it written?
I want to say 1990. It was around the early 90s when that came out.
I mean, I've heard people say that she decreased in quality of her writing after like 99 or something. Do you agree with that? Or?
Well, she found religion again, then she lost it. Then she walked away from it again. Yeah.
Did her books get really religious?
They've always been really religious.
Really?
Oh yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So what Anne Rice book should I start out with?
If you want to start out with Interview with Vampire.
Is that like, what's that? Is that his first book?
Yeah, kind of. Okay. Yeah, start out with that one.
Alright, excellent. Look at art there. I want to get a closer look at it.
The Smithsonian Institution building, also known as the Castle, is one of my favorite buildings to draw in the mall. It was built in the 1850s and was designed in a style emulating medieval architecture. The building has a lot of interesting historical artifacts in it, including a piece of Joan of Arc's dungeon, Napoleon's napkin, and the crypt of James Smithson, who was the founding donor of the Smithsonian Institution. While I was drawing the castle against the tent and people, I saw a couple walk by dressed in Robin Hood garb and carrying a bow, and I had to try and talk to them.
What are your favorite books?
Well, our most favorite book in the whole world is the book that's about us.
Howard Pyle's The Merry Adventures of Robin Hood.
I was going to say Harry Potter or something.
Of great renown in Nottinghamshire.
So, why should I read this book?
Oh, well, it's a great retelling of the Robin Hood stories. It's old. It's from the turn of the century, of the 20th century.
A retelling, so it's not the original?
Well, the original Robin Hood stories were all told primarily in ballads, so they were metrical poems, and then some of them were told originally in plays. So we have fragments of plays and ballads from the Middle Ages, and then after that. So a lot of them come from the 17th, 18th century. But it wasn't until the 19th and 20th centuries that people started to compile them into novels, essentially.
And Howard Pyle was a wonderful illustrator whose illustrations of Robin Hood shaped the way the whole world thought of Robin Hood.
Really?
Of how Robin Hood should look.
So, can we trace back the original guy who created it, or are you just saying it's just sort of this character that people just took bits of?
It's a character, yeah. Robin Hood, the name starts to turn up in the 13th century, 12th and 13th centuries in chronicles and in court rolls of criminals. So what would happen is a criminal would be referred to by the court as Robin Hood in sort of the way that we say John Doe.
Really?
Because they didn't know the person's name or they were describing a particular kind of crime. And so so the early references to Robin Hood are all just these little fragmentary things, and then stories start to be told a little bit later than that. So
when society needs a hero, the myth of Robin Hood the legend of Robin Hood gets perpetuated, because Robin Hood is someone who's going to save them from the corrupt, the unjust, by taking from the rich and by redistributing the wealth.
It seems to be a big focal point of his character. That's sort of I don't know if you guys are familiar with D&D at all, but like the true neutral or something like that, or or neutral good or something like
Right.
that. He's willing to do some bad things to give to poor people. But I mean, it seems like, has he ever gone through the sort of phase that Batman did, where he's kind of a really good guy detective in the beginning, but now like people sort of tarnish him a little bit, make him do sort of bad things? Has it ever happened?
Well, it's
Mythos?
interesting. The earliest references to Robin Hood, it's unclear how good he is. Some people just call him a famous cutthroat, for example. That's one of the earliest references to him. It's written in Latin, so the word is sicarius, but it's a cutthroat is essentially what that means. So there are references that suggest that he's bad, but from the same era, there are references that say, outlaws were commended good. They were considered good by people. So we don't know how he originated, what the people's perception of him was at the very beginning, but certainly by the Middle Ages, he was a hero, a folk hero of various kinds. So good things.
If someone wants to start with Robin Hood, like where would you suggest that someone start reading?
Well, it depends on the age.
Let's say 20 smart 20-year-old guy.
I
or
would
girl.
say
Howard Pyle?
Howard Pyle's a good place to start. It's written for a younger audience, but it's also written in a faux medieval dialect, so it's actually hard for little kids to access. But for someone who's
Someone
around
who's
20,
20.
that's a good starting place. And then there are things written by more sort of modern fantasy authors like Park Godwin and Robin McKinley. They've written Robin Hood novels, which would be interesting for a lot of people, I think.
Cool. Thanks, you guys. That was awesome.
You're welcome.